But the identities of these 15 enemy soldiers are still unknown to us, because in the history books of the United Kingdom, these 15 people are written as French, and in the history books of the French people, Hitler's prisoners are all United Kingdom people, and no one can afford to lose this person. However, regardless of which country the person was from, Hitler was awarded the Iron Cross First-Class Medal for his exceptional bravery in combat. This kind of medal is generally only awarded to generals with outstanding military achievements, and ordinary soldiers have no chance to obtain it. Hitler, who later became the Führer, also wore this medal, which was the glory of his life. Of course, Hitler not only received medals, but also was promoted to corporal. Germany's performance in World War I was very brave at the beginning, pressing France's troops hard. However, in the later stages of the war, they gradually began to feel powerless. The high-level German army also realized that this was an almost impossible war to win, so they were dejected all day long. This atmosphere also spread to the frontline combat units. However, Hitler never believed in such words. In his heart, the empire of will could never be defeated. Hitler did not even allow people around him to say such things. If anyone said in front of Hitler that they were about to lose, Hitler would beat that person severely. So the comrades also discovered that Hitler was a very strange person. So in the following battles, Hitler still maintained his fearless fighting style of daring to sacrifice for Germany, constantly taking risks. However, the Grim Reaper always brushed past Hitler. Once, just as Hitler left a piece of land, a shell exploded directly at the place where Hitler had just stood. This good luck allowed Hitler to survive time and time again in his own almost suicidal way of fighting, but we all know that the muse will not always favor a person. Later, Hitler was attacked by a gas bomb from the Allied powers during a battle. He went blind on the spot and was sent to a sanatorium as a wounded soldier. Hitler thought every day in the sanatorium that when he got better, he must return to the battlefield and help his country win this world war, but fate played a fatal joke on him. While he was still lying in the hospital recovering from his injuries, Germany announced its surrender. During this war, although there were rumors that Germany couldn't hold on any longer, many Germans, including Hitler, never thought that Germany would lose. Originally, they only thought of signing a ceasefire agreement, but the government surrendered directly. This news shattered the pride of all German and Italian people. Later, the Allied powers and the Central Powers signed an agreement at the Palace of Versailles in France, which became known as the Treaty of Versailles. Originally, countless Germans thought that the day Germany surrendered was the most terrifying day in German history. But the signing of the Treaty of Versailles made the people of Germany feel what true terror is. Under the Treaty of Versailles, Germany lost 7.32 million population and 73,000 square kilometers of territory. Poland was restored, the German Emperor abdicated, the Austro-Hungarian Empire split into Austria and Hungary, and the German Empire was forced to become the Weimar Republic. In addition to this, the victorious countries were to be compensated £11.30 billion in the form of gold. This sum of money was extremely large at the time, worth about 226 billion marks. The German government will never be able to repay the full amount within a few decades, but in order to repay the compensation, the Weimar Republic overdrew Germany's economy, relying on constantly printing money to plunder Germany's knowingly high prices, and then giving them to these British and French capitalists. To what extent did the German mark depreciate at that time? Let me give you an example. In 1921, $1 could only exchange for 64 marks, but 2 years later, $1 could exchange for 4.2 trillion marks. Germany's economy can be said to have collapsed as a whole. Faced with such a situation, the Weimar Republic had no choice but to publish banknotes with a face value of trillions. Inflation followed, and at the time, the price of a beer in a German pub was as high as several trillion marks. The lives of the people of Germany fell from heaven to hell before World War I. Countless people lost their jobs, became homeless, and lost their homes. Hitler was later absorbed into the government of the Weimar Republic after the end of World War I due to his outstanding performance. Hitler could not accept the fact that his great motherland would surrender for a long time, so he fell into long-term pain. At this time, the Weimar Republic assigned Hitler a task. Because the Weimar Republic did not treat people as human beings, and the German economy had completely collapsed, some extreme nationalist workers united to form a party called the German Workers' Party. The task given to Hitler by the Weimar Republic was to go undercover in this German Workers' Party and then tell the government all the intelligence of this German Workers' Party. Hitler gladly accepted the task and then joined the Workers' Party of Germany. Although the name of this party is the Workers' Party, it mainly promotes nationalism and anti-tourism, which perfectly fits Hitler's own ideas, because Hitler felt extremely comfortable every day as soon as he joined this party. It's not an exaggeration to say that he felt like he was back home. The members of this party were basically people who had lost everything due to bankruptcy and unemployment. These people gather in taverns all day, roaring and saying extreme things. They say that Germany is supreme, and they say that this defeat is because those rulers, those cowards, betrayed the German nation. These words gave Hitler a punishment. After World War I, Hitler had been thinking about why Germany lost the war. There was no reason for Germany to lose, because Germany had the most advanced equipment, advanced technology, and excellent soldiers. So why did such a powerful Germany lose? So Hitler began to compare Germany with Austria-Hungary. When Bismarck was unifying Germany, they fought a Prussian-Austrian war, and Austria was defeated. At that time, Prussia was a single ethnic group with only Germanic people, while Austria was a mixed ethnic group. On paper, Prussia is not as strong as Austria, but Prussia still won. Why is that? Hitler followed this logic and came to a conclusion that the reason for the defeat of the will of the Germanic nation this time was due to the extremely strong will. He also understood that it was those foreigners who held back the powerful Germanic nation. Following this logic, the problems Hitler raised when he was a child can also be solved. Why is it that despite working so hard to learn how to draw, no one thinks he has talent? That's because those foreigners suppressed the Germans to cover up their own shortcomings. Why did his own father force him to become a civil servant? Because his father was deceived by these foreigners. Why are Jewish people so wealthy? The Germans are the most advanced race, and they are so poor. Why are they so wealthy? That must be the Jews using despicable means to obtain ill-gotten wealth. Following this logic, all of Hitler's problems were easily solved. At this point, Hitler no longer believed in communism. Why should he believe in the books written by these evil Jews? Why should he believe in these ideas? He later wrote in his autobiography that there is no such thing as a person dedicating everything to the collective. Therefore, communism is a scam. At that time, he was still an insignificant figure in the German Workers' Party. Before that, he often listened to speeches by German Workers' Party workers in taverns, but he always kept it a secret and the listeners did not speak. And this time, Hitler, who had figured out all the problems, angrily rushed onto the stage while listening to someone's speech in a tavern, driving the speaker down and standing on the stage himself. At first, everyone expressed dissatisfaction with his behavior of interrupting others' speeches, until Hitler began to instill his own ideas in them. His hands were constantly waving in the air, roaring in an almost crazy state, instilling his views into the people in the tavern. He told these people that the Germans are the greatest nation in the world, and although we may fail for a while, we will always stand up. He said that at a time when the country is in such danger, there should be a hero, a group of heroes who stand up to save the country. Hitler was undoubtedly a genius speaker. He never said anything empty to these workers with low education level. He just emphasized the sense of national honor to them over and over again, telling them that there would be bread and milk, warm houses, and the dignity of the German nation lost during World War I. His speech was well received, and the applause from the audience lasted as long as thunder. People gathered at his feet and shouted, "Long live the will, long live the Germans." On November 8, 1923, politicians and socialites in Munich gathered in a Bavarian tavern for a party. Suddenly, an inconspicuous person jumped onto a table in the center of the hall, picked up a gun, and fired a shot at the ceiling, causing the crowd to scream. After the gunshots rang out, a group of 25 armed forces also rushed into the venue, pointing their guns at the panicked crowd. The person who fired first jumped off the table and stepped onto the podium. He looked at these social celebrities. The Bavarian and German governments had been overthrown, the provisional national government had been established, the army barracks and police stations had been occupied, and the army and police were advancing indoors under the Nazi banner. Upon hearing this, the social celebrities below suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. They thought it was a robbery, but it turned out that the Nazis came to power. Suddenly, the whole audience erupted in cheers, and the person standing on the table giving a speech was Hitler. Hitler called 3 leaders of the Bavarian government and told them, "I have 4 bullets in my pistol. If you don't cooperate, I can leave 3 bullets for you and the last one for myself." What do you think? These 3 people couldn't keep quiet when they heard such a request, neither daring to deny nor agree. So Hitler looked at them with determination and said to them, "Gentlemen, we can't turn back, and our actions will be recorded in the pages of history." The 3 men continued without a word, and Hitler continued, "If your excellency allows me, I will immediately drive to see the Crown Prince of Bavaria and tell him that the people of Germany have stood up, and I will make up for all the injustices suffered by your majesty." After hearing these words, the 3 people looked at each other and finally agreed to the plan. As they agreed, the scene erupted into even greater applause, with thunderous cheers. The people had gone crazy, and countless people expressed their willingness to join Hitler's stormtroopers and work hard for him. Hitler jumped onto the table, and his emotions reached their peak. He shouted loudly to the fanatical believers that no one could take away the honor of the Germans. "For the sake of the German people, we must fight. We must take back our great Germany from the hands of the cunning government, from the cunning capitalists, and from the hands of these British, French, and foreign vampires." Both Prussia and Austria belonged to Germany and were important components of the German states. After defeating Austria in war, Bismarck did not choose to annex Austria in order to prevent Germany from directly facing the threat from Russia. Instead, he expelled Austria from the German Federation. So when Prussia defeated France and established its proud empire, Almost at the same time, Austria chose to merge with Hungary and form the Austro-Hungarian Empire due to the fact that the two countries share the same origin and race, and with Bismarck's strong efforts to reconcile, they later joined Russia and signed a Three Emperors alliance, becoming formal allies. This alliance lasted for many years. Against this backdrop, on April 20, 1889, a child named Adolf Hitler was born in Austria. During Hitler's youth, he often saw wealthy Jews and arrogant nobles, sometimes riding in carriages and sometimes walking in the center of the road, and every time others see these people, they will retreat to both sides and salute them for hair removal. The beggars on the streets of Austria often find ways to crawl to their feet and kneel down when they see such wealthy people, constantly kowtowing to them and begging for some rewards. Austria is a very magical country with a lot of money and nobles, but there are also many beggars who are starving and cold. However, Hitler, who was a teenager, felt that there was nothing wrong with this because his father was a civil servant and his family background was actually quite good among the Austrians. What does the abundance of beggars have to do with Hitler? Hitler's biggest headache during his youth was that his father particularly hoped he could inherit his mantle and become a civil servant. However, little Hitler had another dream in his heart. Hitler's biggest dream in his life was to become a painter. His father was a civil servant, but his son wanted to be an artist. Hitler's father was really angry from the bottom of his heart, and his evil was like a gall. He often criticized Hitler, but Hitler always believed that he could become a great artist. Everyone knows the story that followed. There is absolutely no such possibility. If we were to evaluate Hitler's painting level, it would only be when he drew international lines on maps. His attainments in this area were relatively high. As for other areas such as painting, architecture or figures, it cannot be said that his painting was not good, but it was mediocre among such an artistic country as Austria. Hitler participated in the art exam twice, but was rejected when he wanted to enter the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts. Even at that time, the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts told Hitler that he definitely did not have the talent to study art. Adolf Hitler fell into contemplation about life at this time. Why do I work so hard to learn how to draw, but others still think I have no talent? Why does my father insist that I become a civil servant? Why are these Jews so wealthy? Why do ordinary people take off their hats and salute noble gentlemen? Why are there so many beggars in Vienna, the busiest city in Austria? Hitler couldn't understand. Because at this time, Hitler was still a 17-year-old boy, and he couldn't find answers to these profound questions no matter what. At this time, Hitler believed that not being able to become an artist in his lifetime was the greatest suffering he had ever suffered. However, it was unexpected that when Hitler was 18 years old, his mother was diagnosed with cancer and passed away quickly. Shortly thereafter, his father also left this world. Because his father often drank and beat Hitler, his father's death did not leave any impression on Hitler. However, his mother's death dealt a heavy blow to this 18-year-old child, knocking him down in the mud of life. Hitler lost his parents, and his life suddenly came to a crossroads. He did not know what he should do, so he prepared to go to Germany, because Hitler had liked Germany very much since he was a child, especially the iron and blood politics led by Bismarck. Although Hitler was born in Austria, he always believed that he should be a German. If you don't know what to do, go to Germany. So, in 1913, Hitler, who had lived in Vienna for many years, set off for Germany. In the same year, a criminal named Stalin was exiled to Vienna for committing a crime. This may be the first encounter between two destined opponents in their lives. After a long journey, Hitler finally arrived in Germany. Although the journey was tiring, Hitler trembled with excitement when he set foot on this land. Germany in 1913 was a great country, and every German was deeply proud of his country. At that time, Einstein was from Germany, and Planck, who proposed quantum theory, was also from Germany. The masters of Schrödinger, Nietzsche and Kant, the names we now hear like thunder, were all serving Germany at that time. Countless scientists and humanities masters are in Germany, roaming the streets of Berlin. Speaking loudly about their theories, they argued fiercely in the tavern, just to explore what was the truth. That era was a great era for Germany. Every German walked on the road with their heads held high. Hitler was moved by everything in front of him and didn't know what to say. This was the motherland he longed to come to day and night. Everything was so beautiful, as if begging in Germany would be a great thing. However, the good times did not last long. Just 1 year after Hitler came to Germany, on June 28, 1914, which was Serbia's National Day, the Austro-Hungarian Crown Prince Ferdinand, who attended the commemorative activities in Serbia, was shot dead on the spot by Serbian youth during his inspection in Sarajevo. Then Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia and World War I broke out. Hitler, who was in Germany, also received a notice from the Austro-Hungarian Empire at that time. The Austro-Hungarian Empire demanded that the Austrian Hitler immediately return to Austria from Munich to fight for his homeland. Hitler was also very excited when he saw this notice. He was indeed going to fight for his country. However, Hitler's homeland in his heart was the proud empire, not the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Therefore, Hitler deliberately pretended to be sick during the Austro-Hungarian Empire's medical examination to escape military service, and then ran all the way to Germany to join the army. After this operation, Hitler joined the army of his spiritual homeland as he wished. He was assigned to the Bavarian Infantry Company, which was assigned to the most intense Western Front troops. Hitler spent some time in the army and soon discovered that he was completely different from the other soldiers. Other soldiers were not willing to sacrifice everything for Germany like Hitler, they just wanted to return home after the war. So he didn't want to fight with these soldiers, and every time he fought, he took the lead and bravely moved forward. Even in one battle, Hitler alone captured 15 enemy soldiers. Hitler, relying on his own ideas and innate oratory skills, soon became the leader of the Workers' Party of Germany. Weimar Republic is stupid. I asked you to go undercover, and you became the party leader. Who would have thought of that? The German Workers' Party we are talking about is the predecessor of the Nazi Party. At that time, the Nazi Party was only a small political party with very low support, while the Communist Party of Germany had a very broad base and higher support at that time. If the Workers' Party of Germany did not have Hitler, according to those traditional propaganda methods, even if they propagated for a lifetime, they could not shake the position of the Communist Party of Germany. So Hitler began organizing the Stormtroopers in 1921, an armed force that was completely obedient to Hitler. Then in November 1923, Hitler attempted a coup in Munich, known as the Tyrant riot. Hitler wanted to seize state power by violence. At that time, he was not afraid that the German army would come to suppress him, because he felt that his militaristic ideology was very compatible with the German army in terms of ideas. They had no reason not to support his coup, but the result was contrary to what Hitler wanted. The army did like Hitler's ideas, but they chose not to suppress him, pretended not to see, but never came to help Hitler. If the government doesn't have the Wehrmacht, what about the German police? The German police worked for the government, and they didn't buy into Hitler's tactics. So they decisively fired at Hitler's stormtroopers, gunshots rang out, and Hitler's stormtroopers fell to the ground. However, the believers believed that they were saving Germany's stormtroopers. The soldiers were not afraid of death and fought with the police one after another. In the end, some died and some were injured. Hitler was also injured in the riot. Although he was not shot, he was rescued by the police who hit and dragged him in the shoulder. The Weimar government hated Hitler's rebellion very much. However, during the trial, Hitler began his crazy speech at the trial site. Although it now seems to be all twisted and heretical, it was highly seductive at that time. Even the judge in charge of the trial agreed with Hitler's views and punished him lightly. Hitler, who could have been sentenced to death, was only sentenced to 5 years in prison. Although the rebellion failed this time, the seeds of resistance have been peeled off and will begin to sprout from the soil in the near future. Although Hitler failed in this operation, his political ideas were widely spread due to his rebellion. Countless Germans agreed with his view that Hitler, who was sentenced to 5 years in prison, actually only spent 9 months in prison due to social pressure. He wrote his book in prison, which is the banned book My Struggle. After finishing the book, he was released from prison. When Hitler set foot on his familiar land again, he began to think. He felt that without the help of the army, any reform could not succeed. Therefore, he must have an armed force that is completely loyal to himself, an armed force that can confront the police and the army. So he reorganized the stormtroopers in 1925 and formed the SS. In 1924 Germany, with foreign help, finally reformed their monetary system. Inflation eased, but the Weimar Republic did not survive for too long. Just 5 years later, the Great Depression that swept through the entire capitalist country in 1929 came. The economy of the Weimar Republic was already half dead. In the face of the Great Depression, Germany's economy completely collapsed. By 1932, the real wages of German workers had dropped by 70% compared to 1928, the unemployment rate had skyrocketed to 35%, countless people died of illness and starvation, and countless Germans could only beg on the streets, but there was no normal person on the streets, all beggars. The ruling class of the Weimar Republic was almost completely ruined. The members of parliament argued endlessly all day long, and they were helpless against this terrible situation. However, when someone proposed reform, other parties would immediately oppose it. People are not against things, they oppose for the sake of opposing, and no proposal can satisfy all parties. None of these parties is willing to sacrifice their own interests to save Germany's economy. So, in 1932, the parliament simply opened its doors only once a month, and the members didn't go to meetings at all, too lazy to waste time in meetings. The economy collapsed, the politics collapsed, and there was only one door to hell in front of the Germans, and just at this moment, he arrived. The devil named Hitler pushed open the gates of hell and told these desperate people, since you have no choice, come with me. Because of the economic and political collapse at that time, more and more people chose the Communist Party of Germany. Capitalists are very afraid of this phenomenon, because if the Communist Party of Germany grows, they will be hanged by the street lamp. So it is better to support Hitler's Nazi Party than to support the Communist Party of Germany. Hitler also reached an agreement with these capitalists to ensure their interests. The capitalists regarded Hitler as the last straw and supported him madly. With the support of capitalists, the propaganda of the Nazi Party began to spread everywhere, and Hitler's political ideas were conveyed to every corner of the once-will empire, including the land that had been ceded. The people of Germany repeatedly recite Hitler's words in their hearts. The Germanic nation is the greatest nation in the world. They firmly believe, follow, and worship. In July 1932, desperate Germans elected Hitler to power. Thus, Hitler led the destitute Germany into its final madness. After Hitler was successfully elected, the first thing he did was to plan a speech. In this speech, he will tell the German people that the reason why Germany is so miserable is entirely due to the oppression of British and French imperialism and the exploitation of Jewish capitalists. Germany pays reparations every year. How can the economy get better? It is precisely because the imperialists of Britain, France, and the United States are sucking the blood of Germany that Germany must resist Hitler. He promised to lead Germany back to greatness, saying he would abolish all unequal treaties with foreign countries through his own efforts. He promised dignity to every proud person. He promised milk and bread to every proud person. He promised revival to the proud empire that had already died. Hitler shouted. He told everyone like a madman that he would save Germany from fire and water. He would make Germany rise from ruins. In fact, many politicians had said this slogan before Hitler, but Hitler was different. Ordinary politicians just shouted slogans, but Hitler really did it. In 1933, the second year after Hitler came to power, unemployment in Germany fell sharply from 6 million to 2 million, wages rose sharply, and welfare benefits also increased significantly. With the huge economic achievements, the people worshipped Hitler even more. He really made every German eat milk and bread. Those who have jobs can eat it, and those who don't have jobs will give it to you. At this moment, Hitler's only enemy was the Communist Party of Germany at home. Although they were not yet in power at this time, the existence of this party made Hitler feel like a thorn in his throat. Coincidentally, something happened at this time, which was the Reichstag arson case. A group of people inexplicably ran to the Reichstag in Germany and set fire to it. Hitler keenly sensed an opportunity. So Hitler rushed to the scene and told the reporters that the culprit behind the arson case was the Communist Party of Germany. The reporters, thinking they had big news, ran back to the newspapers excitedly and began to write articles criticizing the Communist Party of Germany. Hitler took this opportunity to drive the German Communist Party out of the Reichstag. And now the Reichstag is almost entirely composed of members of the Nazi Party. At this moment, Hitler almost achieved dictatorship over Germany. But at this time Hitler still had a new president on his head. But this president is already very old. As long as he dies, Hitler will truly achieve dictatorship over Germany. Sure enough, not long after, Hindenburg died. So Hitler merged the positions of Chancellor and President and called them Führer. For years after Hitler came to power, in this year, Germany's unemployment rate dropped to almost zero. The unemployed population was reduced to only 300,000. Germany even appeared everywhere. Recruitment, labor shortage phenomenon. The GDP of Germany's national economy increased from 73.70 billion marks in 1933 to 126.4 billion marks, almost doubling. This is an absolute economic miracle, and the people of Germany instantly rose from hell to heaven. In the summer of 1938, Hitler once again promised the people that if we had the ability to give everyone bread and milk, we also had the ability to give every ordinary worker who shed blood and sweat for Germany a car. If someone didn't believe him when he said before that everyone should eat bread and milk, but when he said again that every ordinary worker should have a car, every German believed in his words. Every German believed that as long as they stayed by the side of the leader, they could move towards prosperity.
If you are a German, what do you think of this new leader, who has rescued you from hunger, cold, and street unemployment for 4 years, given you a job, put milk and bread on your table every day, and claimed that you could own a car? Don't ask. It's the gods who came down to earth to save the world. So the question is, where did Hitler's magic come from? Is it really that simple to quickly activate Germany's economy and govern the country? Before Hitler came to power, the Weimar Republic believed in a liberal economic state that did not intervene in the market, and was only responsible for collecting taxes. After Hitler came to power, he directly used state power to intervene in the economy, claiming to build more than 1,000 kilometers of highways every year, and personally went to the construction site to build the motor. In just 4 years, Hitler built 6,700 kilometers of highways, which is as much as 1/4 of the highways in Germany today. In addition, Hitler developed a military industry, invested heavily in military equipment, and formed a large modern army. With so much money invested, the huge demand created will naturally eliminate the unemployed population, because there is a shortage of people everywhere. Later, Hitler even declared that disobeying national arrangements was illegal, which was undoubtedly an economic miracle. However, such miracles come at a cost, and what is the cost of all this? It is to overdraw Germany's future economy. In other words, Hitler's money was borrowed. He published a large amount of bonds domestically, and refused to give the money of the German people to himself. He promised to double it as long as it reached the specified time. In addition, internationally, Hitler borrowed heavily from foreign countries, and sent envoys to borrow a large amount of money from US capitalists, which was used to build highways, and build Germany's army. At that time, the US was suffering from severe inflation, and if the money could not be spent, there would be a financial crisis. Germany needed real money, and Hitler convinced the US to lend money to Germany through his own abilities. So the US government lent money to Hitler, even the capitalists lent money to Hitler, and Hitler naturally had the capital to develop the economy and welfare. Second, Nazi Germany's prosperity was based on a racial system. At the end of 1938, the German government was seriously unable to make ends meet again, so Hitler extended his claws to the wealthiest group of Jews at that time. Thus, the famous Kristallnacht in history began, and Hitler ordered the SS and stormtroopers to loot Jewish wealthy areas. Anyway, in Hitler's view, the Jews themselves became wealthy through some despicable means. How could they be superior to the Germans? The glass smashed in this conflict. Belgium's production for half a year is high, and the broken glass is scattered all over the ground, so it is called the liquid of crystal. After that, Nazi Germany began to systematically confiscate Jewish property, and Jews who were confiscated were either deported or sent to concentration camps. And that's not all. Hitler sent a large number of young Jews, Slavs, Gypsies, and other ethnic minorities within Germany to do hard labor, forcing them to work 22 hours a day to maximize their value. After these people are exhausted, extract their fat, make soap, remove their gold teeth, and smelt them into gold ingots. After the start of World War II, Hitler also began to systematically plunder and massacre other ethnic minorities. In the 6 years from 1939 to 1945, the Nazis killed more than 15 million people of all ethnic groups in Europe, committing countless crimes. However, the above measures still failed to save Germany's economy. Later, the German government's funding chain was on the verge of breaking, and the debt had expanded to the point where the country could hardly repay the interest. At this time, many fire bonds sold by the German government to the people were about to mature, but the government was seriously short of cash. If the people of Germany cannot be paid back this time, no one will have any hope for Germany. So Hitler stepped in again, and forced banks to purchase government bonds, which was equivalent to taking away the money that users had deposited in the bank, and turning it into government money. It's just that the people of Germany don't know that Germany's bonds can really be redeemed, so everyone has more hope for this newly revived Germany. However, this is a way to quench one's thirst by drinking poison, which can only solve a temporary emergency. A slight mistake can escalate into a huge financial crisis. If Hitler couldn't get the money at this time, the German government would have gone bankrupt, and the prosperity of Germany in the past 4 years would have burst like a bubble. However, all the money of the German government would have been invested in building highways and armies. It would take decades for the highways to break even. In the short term, it is impossible to count on it. The only thing that can be relied on is the army. In other words, there is only one way for Germany now, which is to use the army to create huge profits to fill the previous gap. If we want the military to create huge benefits, there is only one way, which is war. Hitler finally embarked on the path that fate had arranged for him. In fact, as early as 1935, the increasingly powerful Germany had already made its old neighbor France uneasy all day long. Because France was still trapped in an economic crisis at that time and couldn't extricate itself, it sought to unite with the Soviet Union because it was afraid of Germany's aggression. The Soviet Union also needed allies, so France and the Soviet Union signed a treaty of mutual assistance between France and the Soviet Union. However, it was unexpected that this treaty was just Hitler wanting to sleep and handed him a pillow. Hitler made a big deal out of this matter, claiming that the treaty violated the interests of the Germanic people, and that they were joining forces to kill the new Germany. If France dares to sign this treaty, then the German army will definitely enter the Rhineland demilitarized zone. This is a very cunning tactic because the alliance between France and the Soviet Union goes against the interests of other countries. At that time, everyone was afraid of communism. Then Hitler proposed to recapture the Rhineland. On the surface, this was a decision that Germany was forced to make to protect itself. But the Rhineland region is really interesting and worth talking about. The Rhineland region refers to the land on both sides of the Rhine River, which is the only natural barrier between Germany and France. After World War I, the Treaty of Versailles stipulated that within 50 kilometers, on both sides of the Rhine, Germany could not set up defenses. The West Bank was occupied by the Allied powers, and the Rhineland was established as a demilitarized zone, as a buffer zone and warning zone between Germany and France. Once Germany shows signs of war, France has ample time to rely on the Rhine for defense, which is a preventive measure and its military significance. The Rhine also has great political significance, representing the rules established by the Treaty of Versailles. We can even say that the Rhineland region is a symbol of shame after Germany's defeat. Hitler's grand declaration of his desire to recapture the Rhineland and break the symbol of shame of the German Empire naturally gained the support of the people. But the French at the time did not think Hitler dared to tear up the Versailles Treaty directly, so they ignored Hitler's statement and approved the treaty. So Hitler angrily told his soldiers, "Brave soldiers, go to the Rhine." As soon as he announced this order, his voice was drowned out by the soldiers' angry cries. These soldiers have sworn to reclaim this land for their homeland. But in fact, in the German army at that time, everyone was strongly opposed to Hitler's bold plan. Some even said that as long as the United Kingdom and France went to war with Germany, they would directly overthrow Hitler's rule, because France had an alliance with Poland and Slovakia at that time. Moreover, France had just signed an agreement with the Soviet Union. If Germany had provoked a war at that time, it would have gone to war with all four countries at the same time. If a war broke out, the German Empire would have been destroyed. But the soldiers who went to the Rhine, unaware of this, successfully entered the Rhine Blue and stationed there. The atmosphere at this moment has reached freezing point, and war could break out at any moment. Hitler later recalled that it was the most difficult 48 hours of his life, and he couldn't sleep during those days. He pinched the clock and calculated the time. If the French at that time had fired a gun accidentally, the Germans could only flee like a drowning dog, with their tails between their legs. Hitler put all the fame and honor he had accumulated in a few years on this gambling table. Hitler knew that the People's Front had won the elections in Spain. The disintegrated Spain is about to have a civil war, and the internal Qing Soviet forces in France are gradually becoming stronger. At this time, France's political arena was in disarray. The left and right divisions between political parties were very serious. The economy had already collapsed, and Hitler's Mussolini led the army into Ethiopia. The United Kingdom absolutely had no time to manage Germany's recovery of its own territory. Hitler seized this time and blocked everything of his own. However, even if the timing, location, and people are chosen, this plan may still fail, and this failure will drag his beloved motherland to hell. Subsequently, France even mobilized 13 divisions to the Maginot Line. This move made Hitler break out in a cold sweat, because war could break out at any time. Hitler felt like he was dancing on the edge of a knife, and could be doomed at any time. However, in the end, France compromised. In response to Germany's blatant tearing up of the Versailles Treaty, France did not even fire a shot, and directly accepted the fact that Germany had reoccupied the Rhine River. As Hitler thought, France had serious internal political divisions, and its economy had almost collapsed, making it unable to launch another war, even if the opponent was weak Germany. The United Kingdom was busy with the fire in its own backyard, and did not stop Germany's behavior. Even at that time, many United Kingdom politicians thought that the Rhineland itself was Germany's territory, and it was understandable for them to station troops there. Anyway, it would be cancelled sooner or later, just a little faster. Once again, the Muse stood behind Hitler. This gamble, he won. Because of this gamble, Hitler became a hero in the hearts of the Germans. After Hitler recaptured the Rhineland, the streets were filled with people celebrating, kneeling and crying, men drinking beer like crazy, and women gathering to dance. These people never thought Hitler could really do it, as if Hitler was a hero sent by heaven to save Germany. At the gate of the Yuan capital, where Hitler lived, they converged into a sea of people, shouting hoarsely and continuously, "Long live Germany, long live the FHRER." Their voices were deafening. For several days in a row, people celebrated like crazy, as if from this day on the will of the people finally stood up from the suffering of World War I. Hitler stood on a high platform and waved to the people, who knelt at his feet and vowed to join him in the rise of the nation. This was the highlight of Hitler's life. He gave the people what they wanted, and the country needed to be revived. Hitler also gave it to him. Wash away the shame, reorganize the military, develop the military industry, and his ambition begins to expand wildly. We have said that Germany's economy is riddled with holes, but there is no place to replenish it, so it can only rely on the military to create economic benefits. After recapturing the Rhineland, Germany's troops began to worship Hitler. At this time, Germany was able to command Hitler like a jade. Hitler then turned his attention to Czechoslovakia and Poland. He firmly believed that he needed to lead the Germans towards true strength and revival through a war. He firmly believed that the Germans were the best people in the world, and as long as they maintained the purity of their race, they would be invincible. He wants to fight a war that belongs to all Germans, a war that belongs only to him.